This video is sponsored by Storyblocks. The DJI Pocket 3 is a great vlogging camera, but can you use it as a studio camera? Well, to put it to the test, I decided to film with the Pocket 3 for this video. So whether you are a beginner or just wanting a simple and clean setup, I'm going to show you the right gear and settings to use so that way you can make your Pocket 3 look and sound great.
You gotta just press record.
Hey, welcome back to Think Media, Nate here. Now, people ask us, can you use the DJI Pocket 3 as a studio camera? And the answer is yes. It actually makes a fantastic studio camera, although there are a few things you want to keep in mind so that way you can make it look and sound great. So let's talk about a few pros to using the DJI Pocket 3. Number one is I actually like the little front-facing display. I can easily see myself as I'm filming, but I do have to remind myself to look at the lens of the camera so that way I'm making connection to the viewer versus looking at that little display. Number two is the image quality. This has fantastic 4K video. I really like the colors of this camera. It's even slightly better than your smartphone, which is a nice little upgrade. And number three is the audio quality. The DJI Pocket 3 does have a pretty good sounding built-in microphone, but you also have the ability to connect a wireless microphone or even plug in an external microphone through the USB-C. So you have plenty of different options to improve your audio quality, which is more important than how your video looks. Now, before you hit record on your Pocket 3, chances are your image quality and your sound quality is not going to be as good. That's because you have the wrong settings, and just getting a few little accessories can really go a long way to making your Pocket 3 look great. So let's first tackle the settings you want to adjust on your DJI Pocket 3. The first thing you want to adjust is your resolution and frame rate. So if you swipe up, you can have access to your different resolutions. I recommend shooting at 4K in either 24 or 30 frames per second, and make sure that you're shooting in the 16:9 aspect ratio. The next thing we want to do is swipe over from the right and click on the Pro mode, and this is going to give us access to more settings to change. First, let's click on the exposure mode and let's switch this to manual. This is going to be helpful in a studio environment. You want to make sure all your settings are locked in. This way it won't change on you as you are filming your video. Then we're going to adjust our shutter speed. Now, if you're shooting at 24 frames per second, then set this to 1/50. And if you're shooting 30 frames per second, set it to 1/60. Next, we want to adjust our ISO, and this is going to depend on which studio environment you are in. But because we're going to apply our own lighting, I actually recommend keeping the ISO as low as possible for the cleanest look. ISO 100 or 200 I found to be pretty good. In this video, I'm shooting at ISO 200 so I can get the appropriate lighting adjustment for this shot. Now, after swiping back, the next thing we want to adjust is our white balance. Again, this is going to depend on what light you're using. For my setup, I'm using a light that is 5600 Kelvin, so we're going to set it to 5600 Kelvin and press confirm. If you're unsure what to set your white balance to, just look at where it says auto, let it automatically adjust your white balance, and then just switch it over to manual and press confirm. Moving on, we want to adjust our color profile, and there are a couple different modes I recommend. Number one is if you just want a really simple setup, just leave it in the normal 10-bit mode and you'll get a great look straight in camera. Or number two, switch to the D-Log M profile. I'm actually shooting with this right now, and it's a way to get a little bit more image quality out of your video, but this will require you to color grade your video in an editing software. The last thing we want to change is going down to image adjust, and we're going to turn down the sharpness and noise reduction. I find the settings that work for me well is -2 on the sharpness and -1 on the noise reduction. Feel free to adjust to your needs, but if you like the way my video looks, then just set it to these settings. Now, before we start recording, there are a few settings in the menus that we want to adjust. Starting off with the video compression, I prefer HEVC over the H.264, so set it to that for a little bit more image quality, and then go down to auto power off and set this to never. We don't want the camera dying on us as we are recording. Now that we dialed the settings on the Pocket 3, let's turn our attention to the lighting of your video. Lighting can make any camera look just so much better, so this is hugely important if you want to look good on camera and also have a great looking image. The first thing I like to do when lighting for a studio environment is to get the most control out of your lighting, and that means turning off your overhead lighting and just starting with a nice dark room, and that way we can control our lighting from there. And then we want to set up our main light or our key light. For this setup, I'm using an aperture 120D with a softbox attachment. We're going to leave a link in the description down below to the lighting gear we recommend. But what's key here is having a soft diffuse source. It's going to look a lot more flattering on your skin. So having something like a softbox or even diffusing it with a shower curtain or diffusion fabric can really go a long way. And then we want to make sure we have the proper placement of our light. So as you can see here, the light is not directly behind the camera. It's actually off to the side around 45 degrees and up a little bit. And this is going to help create nice flattering shadows and not make it look too harsh. And the third thing we want to adjust is our brightness for our lights. I find that the DJI Pocket 3 actually requires a fair bit of light. So definitely turn up the brightness of your lights. That way you get a great exposure for your camera. After you set up the key light, the next thing you want to pay attention to is the background. And for this, I like to get a lamp that I can put in the background and get a nice tungsten bulb, or what I have is an aperture LED bulb that I can control the intensity as well as the color temperature. And I set this to around 2000 Kelvin to create a nice warm glow in the background. And then to my left, I actually have an Amaran tube light, which is definitely overkill for this setup, but I just like the way it looks and kind of creates some more interest into the background. And speaking of adding interest into your videos, one way you can do that is by adding B-roll. And that's where today's sponsor, Storyblocks, comes in. With Storyblocks, you get unlimited access to a massive library of high quality stock footage, all for one predictable subscription price. They've got everything from 4K footage, motion graphics, music, sound effects, and more. I use Storyblocks anytime I need backgrounds, overlays, or B-roll that I can't go out and shoot myself. It saves me so much time, and it's definitely a resource I recommend to every creator. What's even better is with Storyblocks, you're supporting real artists, capturing stories and emotions from creators and talent that AI just can't replicate. So if you want to improve the storytelling of your videos with unlimited stock media, then go to storyblocks.com/thinkmedia or click the link in the description down below. So then after you set up your lighting, let's take a look at the camera placement, because this is very, very important. So the Osmo Pocket 3 does have the included tripod, which is convenient for placing down on a desk. But what I find to be most important when it comes to getting a good look on camera is setting it to just a little bit below eye level, and having it right there creates a more balanced view, versus if it's too low, that might seem a little bit overpowering, or if it's too high, it might make you look tiny in frame. So just a nice neutral look is setting your camera to eye level. In order to get this appropriate height, I actually just have my Osmo Pocket on a tripod. And of course, we'll leave links to the gear we recommend for this whole setup in the description down below. After it's set up to the appropriate eye level, you actually want to adjust your gimbal's head so that way there's not too much headroom above, or you're not kind of cropping out a frame. This is a big mistake I see a lot of beginners make, is they're either the head is cropped off or there's just too much headroom above. So just having a nice balanced field of view, putting yourself in the center is always going to be a good basic look. And the next thing to think about is how far you are away from the camera. The Osmo Pocket 3 has a 20mm equivalent field of view, so that's a pretty wide angle, and I could be a little bit closer if I wanted to, but because I kind of want to show off the desk, I actually needed to get slightly further away, and that's why I set it onto a tripod, so that way I can kind of get roughly elbows up in terms of my frame, and that way you can see my hand expressions if I want to articulate. So that's something to keep in mind. You don't always have to have it really close to you. Now, if your camera frame is not wide enough, you can pick up a wide angle lens adapter you can snap onto the front. It actually comes with the Creator Combo Kit, so that can give you a 15mm equivalent field of view if you want a slightly wider look. There's actually several different filters you can use to attach to the front of your Pocket 3 to get different looks. We actually have a full video breaking down all these filters. We'll leave a link in the description down below to that video. Now, we can't neglect the audio quality. If I were just to record with a built-in microphone on the Osmo Pocket 3, it'll be very echoey, very faint, and just listening to that audio, people are not going to stick around to watch your video. They're going to much prefer having crisp and clear audio. So there are a couple ways to improve the audio quality of your videos. Number one is you can connect a wireless microphone to your DJI Pocket 3, either the DJI Pocket 2 or the DJI Mic Mini. One of my favorite things about picking up the DJI mics is actually quite easy to use. Once you turn it on, it will automatically connect to the Pocket 3. Then you simply attach it to your shirt through a clip or through the magnet, and you'll get great sounding audio. Another way you can use these wireless mics is actually the setup I'm using right now for this video. I can remove this foam cover, and I actually have a DJI Mic 2 connected to this handle and on a little stand. And this is awesome because not only am I getting nice wireless audio, but I can also record a backup track. In case something goes wrong with the connection, I always know I have audio saved to this device, which it can later sync up in post, which is just a nice relief to have. And one cool benefit of the DJI mics is there's actually a little connect button, which you can use to remote trigger your video. So if I'm even far away from the camera, I just hit that connect button, start recording and stop recording. And because this is a wireless setup, I can actually remove this whole thing and be a little bit more mobile. So this is a highly versatile setup if you are wanting a more remote vibe. And here is an example of connecting a podcast microphone through USB-C directly into the Pocket 3. And honestly, this sounds really great and so cool that you have this much flexibility connecting different microphones to this Pocket 3 camera. This is the Shure MV7i, which has a little USB-C out, but we'll leave links to the USB mics we recommend for this camera in the description down below. No matter which microphone you use, you just want to make sure you set the appropriate audio level on your camera. And you can do this by swiping over and clicking on this little microphone icon and set your audio balance that way. You don't want it to be too loud where it's peaking on the red, but also not too low where you can't hear. So just kind of set it roughly and you should have some pretty decent sounding audio. So now that we have the appropriate settings, the lighting, and the microphone, we're already off to filming great videos with the DJI Pocket 3. Now, I do want to address a few questions and concerns people might have when they are putting together their setup of their own, because there were some things that I was not aware of and I kind of wish I knew earlier. The first thing you want to consider is if you're filming the Pocket 3 as your YouTube studio setup is if you're recording for longer periods of time, an hour, 2 hours, you might risk overheating the camera or have it shut off on you because it has an internal battery which is going to generate heat. I'm actually shooting this video right now. It's 43 minutes. It's continuing to rock and roll, which is great. I'm glad that it's holding up. But there is a concern in the back of my mind is, what if the camera just shuts off randomly? So something to be aware of. And yes, you can plug a USB-C to power the camera. It does actually limit you if you want to connect it to your computer or even to a podcast microphone, because you can only choose one or the other. You can't have both powering and using a microphone. So that is kind of disappointing. So for this setup, that's why I use the DJI mic, because it's wireless and has its own battery. I can actually power the camera and then use a wireless mic to make sure I have good audio. The other thing to keep in mind is if you are wanting to use this as a studio camera is when you turn off the gimbal, it's going to reset your camera frame the next time you turn it on, which just adds a few extra seconds of making sure the camera is adjusted. But the thing about building a studio is you want everything to be locked in, ready to go, so you can just turn on a few lights, turn on the camera, and start rolling. You don't want to have all those little frictions in your way of making content. So I feel like with the Pocket 3, it actually might get a little bit in the way, making sure I'm balanced, level, powering on the wireless microphone. Those little things are not super annoying, but if you are filming a lot of content over time, you might just be better off picking up a mirrorless camera, having a dummy battery going into it, and just having it set up and always ready to go. So do I recommend the DJI Pocket 3 as a studio camera? I do think if you already have the camera, why not use it? It actually works quite well, and with a little finessing and getting used to the camera, you can actually get a really decent result, and I'm very impressed with the image quality of this, minus not having a blurry background, but that's another case. Anyway, I do think it is worth it if you already have a Pocket 3 and you want to use it in different settings. Maybe it's your only camera. It can definitely work as a studio camera. Now, would I go out and buy the Pocket 3 as a studio camera? Probably not. I would actually recommend a mirrorless camera like the Sony ZV-10 or Canon R50V. That way you can have continuous power supply, have your nice lenses, have a better shallow depth of field, and it gives you a lot more flexibility for a studio setup. But like I said, if you already have the camera, you can get some great looking results, and I'm actually very impressed with how well it does work. And I also love the fact that this setup is extremely small. I just have the camera on a tripod, little wireless mic, and I'm good to go. And if you want to learn more about the Osmo Pocket 3, then be sure to check out this video right here where we cover 50 different tips for this camera so you can get the most out of it.